My name is Martin Disterheft, and I have with me Julie Johnson. I'm going to introduce Julie a little bit later in the presentation. Today's webinar about essential skills, trainings required to learn ADF for forms developers. Now, why did we pick that topic? It basically came down to that we have received more and more inquiries about how to start learning in ADF, and we figured out on the market where you see all these trade shows, just recently the Collaborate event or the upcoming ODTAC Kaleidoscope event that's about to start in June, end of June. So many more topics are out there about ADF and ADF development, and we as a more coming from the Oracle Forms area have been approached multiple times about how to get started with ADF, what needs to be done, what do I do in training, what kind of skills do I need. So we thought it's a good idea to bring up a webinar topic about this topic area and try to convey today the key messages of what are the basics you need to start off in getting started with ADF. I put up a quote here just to highlight that it's not only Oracle who's heavily starting to market ADF. It's also Gartner, other independent research companies that are recognizing the importance and the strategic future of ADF as a future development or software architecture. And this is a quote from actually already an article published in 2011, but about modernization and migration strategies for Oracle Forms. And it shows you that it is recognized, Gartner recognizes ADF also not only as a viable platform for future software, but also from a cost perspective, a great transition phase to from Forms to ADF. Now, I don't want to concern you. I know that I do recognize that several of you who are attending today are maybe have developed Oracle Forms in the past and have not really necessarily interest in migrating existing Forms application, but just try to have ADF on their resume to be ready for the future here, if you would. And we have tailored this webinar to meet both needs. For both means those of you who have an existing Forms application who would like to move slowly into the ADF area, and for those of you who have maybe had some Oracle Forms experience in the past, have development, but don't have necessarily a project in line where you want to go and just want to try to understand a little bit more detailed, what does it take to learn ADF in more detail. So before we start to see a little bit what is your motivation specifically, we've prepared a poll here, and if you would please start to make your selection. What was your motivation to join today's webinar, and what is your motivation to consider ADF? Is it the first one? Do you have plans to develop maybe a new application in ADF? Or the second one, do you just consider extending your existing Forms application with an ADF form, or maybe some enhancements, a user interface option that you have not considered so far in Forms? Maybe you want to replace your full application with from Forms to ADF, or if a lot of interest right now about ADF Mobile since Oracle released it, are you considering using ADF to develop applications for mobile devices? So, and of course, for those of you who are just curious, of course, make your selection as well. So I'm gonna close the poll. Results are still dropping in here. About 70% have voted. I think that's good enough for now. So let me share the results, what came up here. So we have about the majority, you have plans to replace Oracle Forms with ADF, and that's good. And then of course, second one, a lot of you are just curious, and that's fair, absolutely. So we were gonna tailor this webinar, hopefully to meet your needs, but again, do not hesitate, of course, at the end of the session to contact us. Or if you have an immediate question, if you look on the right side of this of the GoToWebinar control panel, there is a section called Questions. You can easily answer any questions there, and we'll make every effort we can at the end of this webinar to respond to your question immediately. Now, let's look at the agenda we have prepared. Again, we try to tailor it for both groups, for those of you who want to have an existing forms application, want to move forward, or the other one, you were just interested in ADF. So the first part is for the group who have an existing Oracle Forms application in place, and you are considering a transition towards ADF or an extension of your existing Forms application with ADF. And I'll walk you through this part, and then I'll pass it on to Julie. Julie will take on the second part of the webinar, talking about ADF and the benefits and what kind of training, what kind of skill set is required to move forward here. So let's get started with first a quick company profile. PITSS, my company has been founded back in the 1999, but my personal experience is I started working with Oracle Forms since version 2.3, 3.0, and set forth. And we have specialized solely on the topic on how to modernize existing Oracle Forms environments. And about 4 years ago, we recognized that ADF will be a strong player. We, in addition, added Oracle ADF to our portfolio and services. So, and for those of you who haven't recognized it so far, the first line of our location, you sense PITSS is a German-based company, and this is where my accent is from here. So for those of you who are curious where this accent comes from, I'm from Stuttgart, Germany, but I'm based here in Troy, Michigan. So I'm responsible for all the business and activities operations in the Americas region. And part of the Americas region also is our alliance with partners in Brazil and also in Mexico. So that said, when you look at what Oracle is recommending, and this is out of an extract, basically out of the statement of direction that Oracle has published in 2012. It says clearly that, and I should mention this at this moment, it's very important. There is no reason whatsoever or no pressure from Oracle side that you have to migrate or have to get off Oracle Forms. For those of you who have attended the webinar we did about 3 weeks ago with Michael Ferrande, the new product manager with Oracle, he made it very, very clear that Oracle, there is no plans and there is nothing about discontinuing of support for Oracle Forms. So there are even great ideas and plans currently in place about the future and potential enhancements. So there is no need for you that you have to go over to ADF. But what the key message is from Oracle, the recommendation is that you at least get to a supported version of your Oracle Form. So I'm sure there are several of you who are on an older unsupported version, and believe it or not, 10G is already unsupported. So everything, the only supported version currently is 11G. So you got to go on to 11G to benefit of all these features that I will highlight in a few moments here as well. So if you're considering to integrate ADF, and that's meant by the future architecture here, evolving your existing Forms application, you should consider certainly to upgrade to the latest version to 11G, and only 11G enables you then to integrate those ADF modules into your Forms applications. So, but what really does make a successful migration? If you have Oracle Forms and you want to go over to ADF, don't do it in a big bang approach. It's really something. You're changing the complete software architecture of your application. It is not just exchanging some user interfaces and so on. And if you have developed Forms in a while, you recognize very quickly that Oracle Forms didn't really put any restriction on where to put code. You could have put code in your Forms triggers on the form level, but procedures, PLLs, and then also include packages. So business logic has been implemented all over the place. And that's what makes it so challenging for those of you who are considering going to ADF. How do you protect all that investment that you've made over the past years and go over to the new ADF? So our recommendation is definitely, and that's not all ours, it's also highlighted here in this Gartner document I mentioned earlier, you should do it in a hybrid approach, in a phased approach. Just take step by step and make the pace based on your skills and based on your project priorities that you have in place. And again, the key message from Oracle only helps that Oracle Forms is not going away. So you don't have an immediate rush to go there. But there is certainly, most certainly, there are very viable business reasons why one or two screens or some key screens make sense to develop in ADF. And you can very easily integrate those. And that's shown here is that we have several customers already where we integrated a really nice looking and full functional ADF screen. And you can call ADF from forms. You can call forms from ADF and pass parameters between those. It really, for the end users, it's almost a seamless experience for the end users just to see how both technologies can interact and work together. And that exactly enables you to have both technologies together for a while in your portfolio, in your IT architecture. Now, there are several possibilities on how to integrate Oracle Forms. They are all listed down here. And what you should also consider, there are also other third-party organizations who really help you. For example, if you want to go to ADF Mobile, I strongly recommend approaching Aura Player as one of the key players in that market. They'll do a nice job in helping you to get from develop a quick mobile application based on web services. So there are other technologies out there that help you to accomplish this. But from a pure technical point of view, if you want to integrate those two technologies, this is what you have here: integration interfaces, JavaScript, Java, external events, or web services. Those all enable you to interact both technologies together. Now, we at PITSS, especially if you have a larger application, we recommend a certain modernization process to follow to move what I mentioned earlier with the business logic over, and to protect that business logic from forms over to ADF. And it is crucial, not only from the perspective of saving time and money to do that. It's also crucial for the ongoing maintenance in ADF. And there's another quote I put on the very bottom of the slide, is that you will only be successful with this kind of transfer if you architect and build the new application ADF to the sweet spot of the target technologies. And given the fact that Oracle Forms and ADF are so different, and Julie will highlight later a little bit more about the architecture and what it is, but you need to follow certain pattern where to put code, and you need to rearrange and restructure your Forms application prior to move to ADF. And this is the process that we recommend based on a tool that we provide. This tool is called PITSSCon. And we have the ability with that tool, with the capabilities to analyze your code. We find out all the dependencies that you have currently in place. We help you to clean the code. And that's a great situation. If you want to clean the code, you can save so much time by removing all the dead code you have developed over several years. We have customers who use Designer to generate Oracle Forms, and we were able to remove up to 40–50% of code that has been generated by Designer but has never been used. So alone that fact reduces the overall time to get to ADF quite significantly. Imagine if you have 40–50% less code to migrate. That's tremendous. Also, what we recommend when you go there is cleaning redundant objects, and then also expose business logic that can be extracted into the database, expose it via web services. So that's what we meant by protecting your investment. We move business logic that's all over the place in your Forms module down to the database and expose it with web services. And then we have also a tool migration, but just to be clear here, there is no silver bullet out there. There is no tool that does press a button and does everything at once. There will always be fine-tuning and work afterwards to be done. It is certainly a migration from forms technology to ADF is certainly something that you should not underestimate from a time estimate. It can take a significant amount of days. And if you're curious how many days it takes for your application, we do offer a free analysis, if you like, that can look at the complexity of your forms module and give you a good estimate of how long would it take to move from forms to ADF. And so you have a good feeling about how long will it take. So this slide here is, I like bringing it up because it gives you a good idea about what are your other options out there. And I'd like to start from the very bottom here, please. So the key idea is that, again, forms is not going away. There is no need for you to consider moving away in the next 2 weeks or a couple of months here. You should consider, though, to at least upgrade to 11G very quickly. So, and PITSS allows you to do this in 3 or 4 days. If you have an older version of forms, by using our toolset, we can quickly upgrade you to 11G. And what the dotted line means here is the maintenance effort after the upgrade is very low, of course, because you're already familiar with the environment and so on. On the opposite side, if you say, let's leave ADF where it is, and let's start from scratch, it certainly will take a very long time to get started and to develop the architecture until you are on the same point as, from a functional perspective, you have replicated all the functions. And then, of course, you have an ideal architecture and you have a great maintenance afterwards. And our proposal here from a PITSS perspective, with that process I showed you earlier, dead code removal and redundancy, is that you can already start today with your application and prepare your forms application. And by preparing your forms application, you also achieve a very good maintenance effort here, because you reduce the maintenance down the road. If you have less code to maintain, or relocated your code to places where it should be according to the ADF architectural best practices, it's a great thing to do. It might take a little longer, but it's certainly worthwhile doing. So by using a tool like PITSS, it can certainly help you accelerating this. Now, I should also mention there are other tools out there that offer also forms to ADF conversion, but keep in mind, if always look at how much they do the preparation work, how much do their realigning of their code. Very frequently, we have seen code already out there where all the PL SQL key in the trigger has been kept and just moved into Java. So you will have a lot of work later to maintain various redundant code. And of course, it all depends on how your forms code looks up today. So I'm not saying this is always a bad idea, but really take a in-depth look into your existing forms modules if you can approach one-to-one migrations without a forms preparation. We definitely recommend doing this and move forward with this. So to close my part of the presentation, this is just I'm not going through each of these modules, just a glance at our product, what we offer. It's not just the migration to ADF that we offer. We have also several other modules, like, for example, our business logic module that helps you to SOA enable your application, creating web services for part of it. We have source code analytics that gives you a really good management point of view about what are the dependencies and how much lines of code do you actually have, and also from a quality perspective, we have implemented recently certain kind of metrics, source code metrics, how to measure quality of your existing forms code, and that all helps you to analyze how complex is my code today and how much effort would it be if I move to ADF. From a professional service perspective, PITSS is offering the full set of services related to a task like a migration. We can help you with Fusion middleware, infrastructure consulting, setting up a new hardware environment, recommendations, installing the software, integrating into Oracle Access Manager, for example, and so on. Of course, Oracle Forms or ADF Consulting, we can help you providing guidance in your project if you like. We offer also trainings, and I highlighted one element here. We also offer a training for ADF development for Forms developers, where it's more a beginner class where you learn the basics, and also always look back in Forms. It was a trigger in ADF. It was such and such. So you can really compare what is what, and it maybe gives you a kickstart to start off. But for the full breadth of training, we definitely recommend moving forward with a training offering like the one from Firebox. You will hear in a couple moments from Julie. And what you see here is basically a proposed skill build up, a training schedule that you could do. We can help you from a PITSS side with providing some basic help in the re-engineering, in the preparation of your forms code, and then help you along the way when you go through all the training steps of ADF with consulting guidance. And even if you would like to staff or have us help for a couple of weeks and months and not only a few days, we have the resources available by partnering with companies like ECS Team that have a significant amount of ADF developers on staff that can help us out even to staff the largest or larger projects, if you like. So that said, I bring up this slide later again to discuss potential next steps. At this moment, I'd like to introduce to you Julie Johnson. And let me be honest, I don't know really why I introduced Julie to you, because she has done several trainings for our customers and always did such a good job for us or for the company. So the company never had a need to come back to PITSS anymore. So I guess she's doing something right here. To pass her on, to give her time to introduce, I'd like to also start a fresh poll while Julie is introducing herself. Julie, it's yours.
Thank you so much, Martin. Welcome, everyone. Yes, if you would go ahead and please do the poll real quickly. Just want to introduce myself real quickly. My name is Julie Johnson. We're based here. Firebox-Training is based out of Golden, Colorado. So we're on the outskirts of Denver. And we founded our company back in year 2007. And we've done quite a bit of work with Oracle ADF and other various technologies. And today, what we're going to do is talk about the benefits of ADF. We're also going to be talking about the underlying technologies that are really helpful to know when you are developing with ADF. We'll also be talking about some of the ADF basic concepts, and I'm just going to go through a really simple ADF example just to give you a tangible view of what the development process is like, and I will keep it very simple. Okay, good. Now I can do my screen sharing as soon as you close the poll. There we go. Okay. Just a moment here. Okay, wonderful. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. First of all, I want to talk a little bit about the benefits of working with ADF. One of the biggest benefits is that ADF is built on a lot of very popular technologies that have been around for a while. Behind really what's happening under the hood of ADF is there's a lot of Java going on. There's a lot of XML descriptors that describe the different objects that you're working with, and the whole framework is really based on JSF if you're dealing with an ADF web application. So we'll be talking about some more of these technologies here shortly, and we'll also talk about what exactly is JSF. So it is based on the Model View Controller framework, and a lot of different programming languages implement this kind of framework. Basically, MVC architecture means that what the end user is seeing, whether it's a web page or a Swing application or their smartphone, basically what they're seeing is the view layer of the application. And the model level of the application is really the business logic. Okay, and so the controller is what communicates between the model and the view. So we don't embed any business logic inside of our view layer. Okay, so why do we want to implement an MVC architecture? Well, we want to make our application scalable. So if I need to change the view for some reason, it's not going to mess up my business logic. One of the other benefits of ADF is that we've got many different choices for the back-end business logic technologies. For example, POJOs, plain old Java objects. If I want to have some kind of business logic that's just a straightforward Java object, I can do that. I don't have to do anything fancy. If I have some existing enterprise Java beans, or if I want to use Java persistence API, that can be my back-end logic. If I want to use ADF business components, which can let us tap into, let's say, a back-end database, we can do that. We can even use web services. So the quick example I'm going to show you is where we're using ADF BC, which is the ADF business components. We also have drag and drop declarative development. So you can accomplish a lot developmentally simply by dragging things onto the view, and you don't have to really do any coding. So in our example coming up, you'll see that we don't have to program any Java. We don't have to directly modify any XML, but behind the scenes, that's all getting done for us. We have over 150 AJAX-enabled ADF Faces components. Now, this is where a lot of people get confused when you ask somebody, well, do you know ADF? Well, there's many different layers of ADF, and one of them is called ADF Faces, which is really just web components that are used within a web page that can communicate with the ADF infrastructure. Okay, so you can have an ADF application without actually using ADF Faces. You can have an application that uses ADF Faces but doesn't use the ADF business components. So it's very, very flexible. But one more side note about the AJAX-enabled part. AJAX stands for asynchronous JavaScript. So it simply means that there's some built-in support for partial page rendering. So in a nutshell, you can have different parts of the page automatically refresh without doing a full page refresh. So it's more of a streamlined experience for the end user. We also have support for skinning, so creating a customized look and feel for your applications. Behind the scenes, what we're working with really is cascading style sheets, but there's a graphical editor to help you modify those cascading style sheets files. So you don't have to be an expert in that field. Okay, so let's take a look here. We have built-in declarative security. We can declaratively define security on many different levels. For example, we can secure a web page. We can secure an entity object or an entity object attribute. I mean, there's so many different things that we can secure, but it's all done declaratively through XML descriptors. But once again, we're not directly modifying that XML. We're simply using a graphical interface to generate the XML. We also have support for internationalization. So if you want to have a multilingual application, it's pretty easy to do through resource bundles. Okay, so we could initially create our application in English, and then if we decide, you know what, we want to, have a Spanish version and a German version and a Chinese version, no problem. We just create resource bundles for each one of those locales. And then we also have integration with service-oriented architecture. So if you want to plug into the SOA architecture, you can plug into that by firing events through our business components. And finally, we have good debugging support. So we can debug our Java files, we can debug our task flows it's very easy to work with that. Okay, so really, what are the different technologies behind ADF? Well, as I mentioned, there's a lot of XML going on behind the scenes that describes the different objects. We have SQL that's running behind the scenes, typically, for dealing with ADF business components. So even though we're not directly writing the SQL, we can see the SQL that's being generated, and we can even tweak the SQL. If you feel comfortable with the SQL language, you can make modifications like change the ordering of your output. A lot of Java is generated behind the scenes, but if you want to really, have control, fine-grained control over your application, you can turn on the option to customize that Java and add extra methods. Java Server Faces, or JSF. JSF is really a Java framework. It's a model view controller framework, and ADF really is built on top of that, so there's no need to do any low-level programming. All that plumbing is already in there for you. HTML. Well, do you have to be an HTML expert? No, but it's good to understand the basics of HTML, because when you're running your application, you can always view the source of your web page and do a little bit of debugging that way. Cascading style sheets and JavaScript, those are both used, or they can be used. As I mentioned, cascading style sheets are used for skinning your applications, and JavaScript is one of those bells and whistles that you can add to your application to add a little bit of client interaction, client-side interaction within your web page without making a trip to the back-end server. Other technologies, and I want to mention this is not a complete list, but these are some of the technologies, more typical technologies. If you want to tap into web services using SOAP, you can do that, Simple Object Access Protocol. Not only can you consume web services through an ADF application, but you can also make your ADF application accessible as a web service to other clients. So let's say you had a standalone Perl or PHP program. If you wanted them to be able to tap into your business components through web services, you could easily do that. Okay, so I just want to emphasize you don't have to be an expert in any of these areas, but learning the basics is pretty important. Okay, so as I mentioned, basic concepts here. ADF is based on MVC architecture, where we have model view controller, but the ADF architecture actually adds one more layer, and that's the business services layer. So that's the actual business logic. And if we're dealing with ADF business components, typically we're using entity objects and view objects to tap into a database. Okay, so here we have our ADF layers: view, controller, business services, and model, and we'll take a look at that closer here in just one moment. Okay, I already explained earlier what view and controller means, and the business services is the business logic. Really, the model layer is what associates your view components to the business services. So it's really just done through XML descriptors. It's kind of like the glue between the view and the business services. Okay, so if you wanted to just get a quick glimpse of how ADF development works, what you're actually seeing is a screenshot of a roadmap when we create a brand new application. So if we were to create in JDeveloper a new Fusion application, this is what you would see, and you can use this as your roadmap, or you could just kill this window and do things in your own order if you want to, and I'll show you that in just a moment here. But in a nutshell, if you're creating an application, you want to, of course, plan your application. You need to have a database to connect to, and you build your business services. And so, this is where you can tap into, database views. You can tap into database tables, materialized views, all sorts of things. And in fact, you can have some custom PL SQL code if you want to. And I also want to emphasize that you're not even limited to an Oracle database. If you want your backend database to be MySQL, yeah, no problem. Okay, so once you build your business services, you then kind of design the flow of your application, and then from there you can design your pages. And then you add common components to add common components to your application. You can implement the business logic, secure the application, and a lot of these down here are optional. I mean, you don't have to secure your application. If you want it to be, every page is public, that's fine. You don't have to internationalize your application, but they do provide a roadmap for that. You definitely want to debug and test it, and then when you're finished, you can package and deploy it and make it SOA enabled, SOA enabled. Now, if I simplify this process to just the bare bone minimums, if we wanted to just demonstrate a quick little application, I would first of all create my business components and then expose them as business services. Okay, so let me go ahead and I'm going to share my screen. Here we go. You should see my screen right here. I've got my JDeveloper environment, and if you want to just get a quick little idea of what an ADF application looks like in development mode, you see that we have a model layer and we have a view controller layer. And just to do a little bit of reverse engineering here, you'll see that in my model layer I have all different types of objects, and I'm not going to get into the details of these objects, but I just want to show you that when you're looking at these objects here, for example, I've got an employee's view object right here, there's actually a SQL statement behind it. So this is where I'm saying, it's helpful to know SQL, because if you need to make any tweaks, any modifications, you can always do that through here. Okay, the view controller is where we have access to our different pages. So you'll see here that I've created a page called emp form, where I've just got a simple form, and it's for viewing our employees, and I can scroll through my different employees right here, and I can save changes, I can create a new employee. You'll see also here that I have an emp table form, so I can see all the employees at once if I want to. And so when we're talking about the view layer of our application, we're talking about these JSF pages. Okay, so if you wanted to get a quick glimpse of what this looks like, I'm going to show you this application. This is in run mode right now. And you'll see here that I can highlight one of these employees right here, and then I can edit the employee, and you'll see that it allows me to make some edits here. And you'll see that as soon as I hit Save Changes, it saves the changes and it takes me back to the table to the current record. So what's nice about ADF is it maintains the currency. It keeps it's aware of the currency of our application, of our view object, I should say. Okay, so once again, our view layer is what we see, and so we're looking at this in design mode. If we look at this in source mode, you can see that really this is XML. So this is why it's important. This is, if you have some kind of error in your XML, sometimes you need to go in here and do a little bit of debugging, and so that's why it's important to understand that skill. Now, we talk about the view layer. What other layers do we have? Well, as I mentioned, we have our business services layer, and that's our model right up here. And what's nice about our business services layer, our model layer up here, is I can actually run what we call an application module, and I can do some testing on my objects in here without ever even creating a page. Okay, so this is a really nice testing feature, so we can kind of cordon this off and just do testing on our business components. Okay, so let's go back to our form page right here. We talked about our view layer, we talked about our business services layer, what about the controller layer? The controller layer is really responsible for navigating from one page to the next. And you can see that, you know, if we wanted to go into here, I have this XML file. I mean, behind the scenes, it's really an XML file, but if we look at this in diagram mode, it's really user-friendly. So this is one of the benefits of ADF development is, yes, under the hood, we're dealing with XML, but when we're developing, it's really a visual experience here. Okay, and so this is where we can define navigation from page to page. Okay, so for example, if I'm sitting on my emp table page, and I have some kind of button on my page or some kind of command item on my page that has an output of DEL, then it's going to perform the delete operation and then perform the commit operation and then show our emp table again. Okay, so this is why it's important to understand these concepts because, you know, even though, you know, somebody might create an ADF application for you, you need to be able to make modifications to it and really understand what's going on underneath the hood. Okay, and so if I take a look at my employee table right here, or at my emp form right here, another important concept with ADF development is that, you know, let's take a look at one of these guys right here. For example, the first name. How does it know to put the current record's first name in there? Well, we can always right-click. We can always, you know, go to the binding layer, which is really our model layer, and see the relationship between the component and the back-end model. Okay, so the business services. So here we can see that, you know, we're looking at our page in bindings mode, and we can see how the component is actually glued to the layer up here. Okay, and so this, once again, this is why it's so important that you understand how this all, you know, how all the pieces fit together. Okay. Same thing with any of these buttons down here. For example, if I'm running my page right here, let's say I want to edit my employee again, you'll see that I can loop through, I can scroll through my various records. Maybe I want to change this to say Beth. Okay. Beth is my current record right now. I save my changes and you'll see that this is the current record. So ADF maintains that type of currency. When we look at this in design mode, what do these buttons, what's really going on behind the scenes here? Well, if I right-click on this next button and I go to the bindings, I can see that this is associated with an action binding. Okay, so I'm trying not to get too technical here, but I just want to show you that there's a lot of different moving parts here. Okay, so so not only do you need to understand the basics of Java and XML and SQL, but if you're going to be internationalizing your application, you'll want to know a little bit about cascading style sheets. Okay, you'll want to know a little bit about JavaScript if you need to do any client side. Okay, so there's a lot of different pieces. Also, if you want to have a consistent look and feel across all of your pages, you'll need to understand how page templates work. Okay, if you need to secure a page, well, you need to be able to declaratively do that, and I'll just show you real quickly. You can do this declaratively through this interface. There's actually a built-in wizard that helps you do this, but once you go through that wizard, you might need to make some tweaks to it. Okay, so so that's really our overview here of ADF. We do have some YouTube and blog video tutorials just to kind of get you started in the ADF world. And I just want to wrap this up a little bit. Let me go back to my slideshow. As far as ADF resources go, your starting point really should be Oracle's ADF web page. From there, you can find all the documentation that they have. I mean, they have documentation on just the view layer if you want, or if you want to just get an overall Fusion overview. I mean, there's about 10 different types of documentation that they provide. And there's also a really good ADF Rich Faces demo, which just demonstrates you know, some of the features that the Rich Faces provides. And in fact, I'm going to show you real quickly what that looks like. Give me just a minute. You'll see right here that this is their demo for the different components. And you'll see here that, for example, if we, oh, page is expired. Let me go ahead and run this again. You can get a good idea of what some of these look like. For example, if you want to see how tables operate, you can see the look and feel. You can get an idea of what the different components are. As I mentioned, there's over 150 AJAX-enabled components available. So some of these, of course, you use more than others. We also provide some ADF video tutorials, as I mentioned. If you go to Firebox-Training.com/blog Oracle ADF training courses, they're about 10 minutes each. You can get it just a quick glimpse, get started, just see a few demos there. And just a little bit. Just want to wrap this up about Firebox Training. As I mentioned, we are Denver-based. We are instructor-owned and instructor-operated. All of our instructors we work with have real-world experience and certified in whatever technologies, if there is a certification associated with it. And we do offer group and individual trainings, as well as public and private, on-site and online. Okay, and here's our contact information. And I'm going to, I just want to say thank you for listening. I'm going to hand control back to Martin.
Very good. Thank you very much, Julie.
Thank you so much.
So let me take over the presentation. All right. So I'd like to finalize the webinar with again bringing up this one slide here about how Firebox and PITSS works together. Again, if you are in a situation where you have Oracle forms running and you want to move to ADF, PITSS can certainly help you to prepare your forms and re-engineer your forms, and then provide continuous consulting guidance where we would rely on Firebox if you have any needs for in-depth training and more specific customized training also for your specific organization and for your circumstances. So that's how we work together. Again, the code consulting guidance, we're flexible. It can be in a couple of days. We can talk about weeks, or if you want to have us long term, of course, we are willing to discuss this with you as well. So at this moment, I'd like to open up the question and answer sessions. So let me see if there are some questions. Not too many have had any questions. Again, on the right side of your control panel, you have a section where you can ask questions. So if you would please just type in your question in here, that would be great. Or, of course, if you have any questions related to your specific situation that you don't want to discuss in general here, please do not hesitate to send us an email afterwards. There's one question: how browser agnostic is ADF? Julie, can you refer to this one?
Yes. Okay. So I want to address a couple things. First of all, ADF, when it comes to browser agnostic, whether an application is browser agnostic or not, typically, with web applications, the issue really boils down to JavaScript, right? And as I mentioned, ADF does support JavaScript. In fact, instead of using raw JavaScript, as an ADF developer, you're supposed to use the JavaScript API that ADF provides, right? So if you use their API, it does make it browser agnostic. However, that doesn't mean that the JavaScript will always work, because some people turn off JavaScript in their applications. Okay, so if it's an issue with JavaScript, then always keep in mind that not every browser enables the JavaScript. Now, taking JavaScript out of the picture, you know, if your application is not using JavaScript, it's really just a J2EE application. I mean, really what's going on behind the scenes is you've got a JSF application, right? So, so it truly is agnostic, okay? From my experience developing ADF web applications, we've never had any browser issues, okay?
Very good. Another question came up here. Is ADF certified to use with Oracle EBS?
Ooh, yeah, I want to say yes, I believe so. I would need to double check on that.
All right, we'll get back to you with that one. Then there was a question about when you call Oracle Forms from ADF, does ADF opens another Oracle connection and vice versa? Let me talk to this question. Yes, it does open another connection, and the one thing to consider if you do this integration is currently we can only implement enclosed transactions, meaning if you open a session in Oracle Forms and you start an edit of a record, you have to finish the commit inside your Oracle Forms session. You cannot call ADF and continue the transaction over there. So the limitation, if that's a limitation in your eyes, can only be you can only finish a transaction and go over to the other side and then finish it there. So another question about ADF, can we have tabs and tabs over tabs for screen layout? That's a very specific question here. Tabs and tabs over tabs for screen layout.
Do you mind if I answer that question?
Sure, absolutely. Sure.
Okay, so I'm assuming I'm assuming the question is primary and secondary tabs. That's what I'm assuming the question is about. Yes, actually, with ADF, we can create a very complex navigation structure, and we can have 1, 2, 3, 4, as many levels deep as you want of navigation layers, and we can quickly and easily create that kind of hierarchy. For example, you might want to have your first and second layer be tabs, and then maybe your third layer of navigation be a list of bullet points, and you can do that pretty easily through what we call a menu model. And in fact, on our YouTube tutorials, we actually have a tutorial that specifically does that. So you might want to check out our link there. Yes, it's very easy to implement.
Very good. Another question for you, Julie. Will ADF work with non-WebLogic web servers, e.g. IBM WebSphere or JBoss?
Absolutely. So once you can typically you're going to be performing development in your JDeveloper environment, just because it's really all built in, integrated. But once you deploy your application, really it's just a J2EE application, and since it is adhering to that J2EE standard, you can deploy that application to what we call an enterprise archive file or an EAR file. So once you deploy that to an EAR file, you can then drop that into WebSphere or JBoss, any kind of J2EE compliant container, and it will work just fine.
Very good. Now there is a question: can we generate reports using ADF? And Julie, you may add something in addition to this, but I'd like to highlight that we had a great webinar this week on Tuesday about integrating BI Publisher, for example, into ADF and also Forms. And it definitely is possible to generate reports out of ADF. So if you would like to see more information on that, I can share with you the link on that webinar that we did this Tuesday. Do you have anything else you want to comment on the question?
Yeah, I just want to also say that since since this ADF it runs in the J2EE container, I mean, you can actually not only have it tap into BI Publisher, but if you are running Oracle Business Intelligence, OBIEE, you can tap into anything in there as well. I mean, you're just linking, and so and in fact, your ADF application can link to anything internal or external. It can so yeah, all these different technologies can plug into each other.
Very good. Let's do two more questions. And here, what are the licensing requirements for ADF?
Okay. You know what? I am not the person to ask on that. I would talk to ask somebody who's responsible for, who can do the licensing. We're not a licensing partner, and I don't want to misquote anything.
No, we can help there as well.
Okay.
Please, we will get in touch with you later when we talk about this, but it definitely would need to have WebLogic in place, and then we'll talk to you about this after the webinar. So the last question I'd like to take on, yeah, there was a question about this BA publisher reports from ADF. Absolutely, we will send out the links on that one. And then the last question I heard ADF application is slower compared to Oracle Forms. Is this true? I guess that's always a subjective question. I can also make an Oracle Forms application really slow if needed, but I understand it really depends and comes down, I guess, how you develop your ADF code, where is it executed, and so on. But that's one of the main reasons why, if you have Oracle Forms currently, you have to redevelop your software architecture to meet exactly the sweet spots of your ADF software architecture. If you don't do this, if you have converted code over from, like I mentioned earlier, without a preparation, a one-to-one migration, you potentially will end up in slower application performance. So with that said, I'd like to close today's webinar. Thank you very much for your participation. And again, you can still answer, if you have any additional questions, feel free to reach out to the contact details and emails that you see here on the slide. I'd like to bring to your attention also that if you'd like to meet us in person, we will be at this year's Kaleidoscope event in New Orleans. ODITAC has a very strong lineup of ADF and Fusion development sessions here. So it's definitely worthwhile considering going. And again, we will be there. If you want to schedule a meeting with us to discuss more details of your plan, we'll be more than happy to do that. With that said, thank you very much for your participation, and I'm looking forward to talk to you soon. Goodbye.